Thanks, Eric. So my name is Elliot Katz. I'm an artist, and just to preface my talk to you, I've been moving around a lot lately, but for several years I've considered Burlington my home. And this talk is going to be a mashup of themes involving identity, overlapping cultures, family history, and how I make art. I grew up on a vegetable farm in Cabot, Vermont. Is that actually going? Oh. In Cabot, Vermont. I was the youngest child in an earthy, multi-ethnic family, you'll see. My mother was third-generation Japanese American, and my father is of Russian Jewish descent. We arrived in Vermont when I was a year old to escape living in South Jersey, really. In his talk, Where is Home?, Pico Iyer said that unprecedented perspectives are created when diverse people unite in novel environments. My parents' communities intersected in New Jersey as a result of separate migrations at different periods of the 20th century. Both migrations were the result of agriculture, the agriculture industry in the Garden State. And flash forward to the early 1970s, my parents became the first in their families to marry outside of their respective cultures. My dad's grandfather, Morris, left Russia in 1902, the oldest of 10 children. He entered the U.S. through Canada thanks to colonization efforts of Jewish, German, and philanthropist Baron de Hirsch. Morris landed in Philadelphia before joining a de Hirsch farm settlement in South Jersey. My mom's parents spent 3 years in the internment camps during World War II. They relocated to Seabrook Farms in South Jersey after the war. Seabrook was one of the few places Japanese Americans could find work after camp. Though it's not my intention to recount personal history in my art, I've often gravitated to creating work that reveals a sense of personal experience. This is just my studio. Total mess. In early work, like provisional memory models, I recreated scenes from my parents' farm in cardboard and tape. I used to correlate working on my parents' farm with working in the studio because both required prolonged investments of time and a particular type of resourcefulness. Craft became vital in my practice because it stitched together my past and present lives. Sculpture called Monument was a hand-carved recreation of the woodpile behind my parents' house, replete with half-dead car batteries, broken box fans, and rusty tractor parts, all potentially reusable things my dad kept just in case. These ruminations on my childhood home are in contrast with more recent work that I've made while I've moved from place to place, project to project, and in and out of Vermont. These new works generate a more universal sense of place. The images develop from uniting photographic and sculptural processes. I set up tableaus from studio materials like fabric, stumps, and staples, and I transform them, behind the lens of a camera, into vast landscapes that are at once familiar and surreal. At the same time, to me, the work suggests a multitude of fragments forming the whole. The legendary furniture maker George Nakashima described the Japanese aesthetic of harmony as it applies to the tea house. The Japanese can start from nothing and create a whole environment. It's just picking up little scraps of this and that, going out into the woods and cutting a little tree and putting it all together. It's the aesthetic of the tea house, and it creates one of the most lyric environments there is. My work mirrors this philosophy in that I assemble little scraps from my studio into larger environments. However, pure harmony does not reflect the entirety of my experience. The marriage of photography and sculpture and the collision of natural and synthetic materials are like a stand-in for an identity like mine, one that mixes and overlaps ethnic and local cultures, incorporates fragments of history, and is hard to define at first glance. Iyer said that multiculturalism today is undergoing constant change, and where we come from is less important than where we go. As an artist, this is freeing. Not being bound to traditions and moving around is what helps make new discoveries. Photography and sculpture becomes one. The lumberjack and drag aesthetics unite and produce a language that speaks of people and objects that defy simple categorization. In Siskiyou County and Mesa, I translated my family history into photographs and combined them with objects from my life today. The arid desert landscapes where the internment camps were located hover over raw tree stumps that I dragged out of the lush East Coast forest. My investment in craftsmanship and resonance with particular materials may be a result of my heritage, but from there I diverge from the past. The cultural lineage of the mixed-race, relocated individual relies on the present and future as much as the past. This is my other studio. While I haven't completely sorted out all of my thoughts on the relationship between my artwork and personal identity, it seems particularly apropos in the world right now to latch on to Ayer's words about home. It's not just the place where you happen to be born, but it's the place where you become yourself. For me, that place is wherever I'm making art. It's not the physical location, but rather a way of moving through the world and responding to it. Thank you.